Welcome to Focus on the Candidates. I'm Cynthia Pooler. My guest today is Michael Zumbluskas, and Michael is going to talk about a few things going on in New York City. Michael, before we get into the mayor's race, I want to talk to you about the congressional race. You were a congressional candidate who challenged Jerry Nadler. So
Yes.
did you run more than once or
Yeah, I ran twice in this
yeah.
district. Actually, technically, I ran three times, but the other time was back in the 90s, and it wasn't the same district. And I ran
Mhm.
against Carolyn Maloney. Well, I got eliminated in my own primary, but that's a different story.
So Jerry Nadler is stepping down. How many years in Congress will he ultimately have?
Uh, he first got elected in 1992, so we're talking 30 plus years, 33 years.
So he's been in Congress that long.
Yeah, and before that, he was in the state assembly from 77.
Oh my
So
God.
he's never held a real job. He got elected while he was still in law school at Columbia University for the state assembly. So he's never had a real job in his entire life.
So it's safe to say he's a career politician.
Oh, absolutely, no ifs, ands, buts about it. Uh,
Okay.
and the thing is, so many people like electing these people, but they don't understand the working person. They don't understand the people that live their day-to-day lives, not in a bubble, not without a guaranteed income. But these politicians, get in office, they stay in office, and then the people continue to elect them. But it's ridiculous sometimes. We don't train our kids properly. We don't create, and it's even worse now than it was before, because even all these people that go to colleges, and especially these elite colleges, they don't have critical thinking skills. And a lot of that is because of the teacher schools that start teaching them early on from elementary school not to think for themselves. Your college professors don't have them think for themselves, uh, and that's a huge problem. And that's why, going, our next subject, that's why so many people support Mondami.
Mm. Well,
But
I I've come across a number of lawyers who, as I'm having a conversation with them, I think to myself, this person doesn't know critical thinking. What did they learn in law school?
nothing. That's the problem. Lawyers should have the most critical thinking, and they don't. They don't even know the rote thinking, because if you actually talk to them a lot about our constitutional laws, they don't even know those. You look at a lot of the judges' rulings over the last couple, since Trump got back in office. The Supreme Court tells these district court judges, you have no authority over, immigration law, because the courts were set up by Congress. The only court that was set up by the U.S. Constitution was the Supreme Court. And at
Mm-hmm.
one point in time, early on in the Supreme Court's history, all the Supreme Court judges actually acted as district courts. They would go throughout their districts to actually judge that. As the country was expanding, Congress said, and the judges went from, hey, this is too much. We can't really do all this. So the Congress set up these district courts, and they set up a couple different courts. First of all, the district courts will hear most cases. They have immigration courts that will hear immigration. For finances, like if the government owes you money, they have the Court of Claims. So there's a number of different courts. And these district courts have no authority over immigration. but they try to claim it. That's why Judge Kavanaugh went and slapped down these district courts, because even after the Supreme Court ruled that you have no authority, this is going into the immigration courts. Immigration is under a completely different standard of laws than you and I. Just think about it this way. Everybody has the misconception they need a trial. Well, a trial says, unless it's a judge, just a judicial trial where a judge is overhearing it. But if you're going to have jurors, they have to be jurors of your peers. How can they be your peers if they're citizens and you're a non-citizen? So that means they have to put non-citizens on, which is illegal because non-citizens can't serve on the courts. That's why they set up the immigration courts. And
Wow.
lawyers don't even know this stuff. This is the problem. Lawyers coming out now are so miseducated. Most college students right now are so miseducated on almost everything. They don't understand our political system. They don't understand our laws. They don't understand economics. And it's a failure of our colleges. And it's also the failures of our business leaders. You know why? Because our business leaders, even though I've listened to them, I'm talking, people with hundreds of millions of dollars run billion-dollar companies, saying the college students coming out just aren't that good. Saying, hey, they don't have the critical thinking, they don't have the skills to actually operate in our economy, in my company, because they aren't taught about economics. They aren't taught reality. For example, right now, going to Mondami, he's a socialist. They have no clue about history. They don't realize that in every country that went socialist to communist, except for the Scandinavian countries, it was done by the young people. The young people, well, and I can understand it slightly, especially in this country, but I'll get back to that. And as soon as the young people were able to overthrow and put the Castros in, Maduro, anywhere around the world, they were turned on immediately, because these were the activists. These were the people that win. And guess what? The leaders, once they gained power, went after them, because they didn't want them to go after the new leadership, because they were taught, and just like in this country, most of the left is taught hatred, to be despised. Nothing is going right. They're given no hope unless you have a complete destruction of the current system. And that's what they're doing. Going back to
It's
our country, part of the problem is, over the last 10 years, they've been lied. Well, it's longer than that, but mostly over the last 10 years, they've been lied to by our leadership, outright lied to, and they're starting to catch on. So they're saying, why should I trust the people in power right now? Let's get younger people involved and get them in, and we'll change everything. Well, you guys don't have the experience. You definitely don't have the education, because you're not taught critical thinking. So you really think you're going to change the world for the better and not screw it up? I'm sorry, you need some practical experience. You need some actual knowledge, which they don't have. 90% of the knowledge they have is theoretical, uh, with very little practical knowledge in it. And that's how they're taught.
a question
Sure.
for the congressional race. There's been a number of big names mentioned. There's Carolyn Kennedy's son,
Mhm.
and um there's somebody else whose name is
Chelsea's
that's it.
Clinton.
That's it. Chelsea.
There's been a number of other people that worked in the Obama administration, political hacks that have been in the system as a from helping different candidates in their offices. Actually, I think the chief of staff of Nadler is running for it. So yeah, most of these people, it's people like that.
So the average person, would you say, has a slim shot of becoming the next congressperson?
Um, they do if they run the right campaign and get their message out there. And they need to go after these rich Nepo babies, which they are, that are entitled. And we have to convince the voters they're not entitled because their parents are the ones that caused a lot of these problems.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
were elected and they caused a lot of the problems. They were the ones that shipped our factories overseas. They're the ones that implemented, one of the reasons New York City pays so much money for electricity is because, we have everybody and their mother going for the Green New Deal, which doesn't work. Europe is falling apart because of the Green New Deal. Ceylon, an island off of India, used to be one of the biggest tea manufacturers in the country. They borrowed some money from the World Bank, and the World Bank said, yes, but you have to go and use all this green stuff, green fertilizer, green this, green that, which drove up the cost of, like fertilizer and all the goods that went into making their tea.
Mm-hmm.
Now the country's in economic collapse because they can't sell it. They can't get this stuff. It's too expensive. Half their farmers went out of business. They never think of the unintended consequences. And that's because they are not taught about that and they can't see one step before them. Every one of them, one of the things that I think is an advantage, I think everybody goes to college needs to learn to play chess because chess forces you to think multiple steps ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody thinks about that. Oh, that sounds great. Oh, let's look at this. And okay, but if you do, like, all right, the city run grocery stores. Okay, so what does that do to the mom and pop bodegas? What does that do to the profit supermarkets? Supermarkets are such a low profit margin. They only make maybe 2% profit. That's not a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
John Catsimatidis said, oh, if he starts going after our supermarkets, I'll just close them. His supermarkets aren't a moneymaker for the Catsimatidis fortune. It used to be, but not anymore. And their profit margins are even less because of all the you know, uh, theft. People come up and shoplift this and that and get away with it. That adds to inflation. That adds to everything.
So let's talk a little bit about the mayor's race. It's unfortunate that the killing of Charlie Kirk has taken the mayor's race off the front page, but it's
Hmm.
still there. We have a little over a month to go, maybe a month and a half. Mandami is still beating the pants off of Cuomo, correct?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. He's got like a 13, 14 point lead.
Okay. So during the primary, I believe that Cuomo thought he was going to be a shoo-in,
Yep.
that he didn't have to campaign. I'm going to sit back and, wait till primary day. And so Cuomo did not win. And he has been attacking Mandami for something that's his own fault, correct?
Yeah. Well, also he's not attacking Mandami properly.
Mm.
And that's the problem. And part of the reason Como can't Because if he attacks Mondami, he's attacking the Democratic base. By the way, my name for Mondami is a silver spoon socialist, and that's
But
what he is.
but you know, I'm gonna go back in history, even though I was not born yet. LaGuardia was a socialist. You don't hear much about that, right?
Um, yes, but LaGuardia also had um, more experience than Mondami. LaGuardia at the time had, uh, you know, uh, rational thinking. Mondami doesn't. That's the problem. The education system, even for our college level people, are, they're not teaching them how to critically think. They're not thinking of them how to research. These people are going on ChatGPI and other AI platforms and getting their information. And a lot of times probably a good 20-25% of that time, that information coming up on these AI platforms are complete lies. They make stuff up, and that's a problem.
When you
They
say they make stuff up, who's they?
they the AI platforms written by the programmers,
Okay.
because the programmers tell them not to, because the programs say, okay, if somebody asks this question, this type of question, go to this default. So the programmers uh, have it, just like prime example is conservatives were claiming for years that they were being censored. Well, guess what? The conspiracy is actually true. Google came out a couple days ago and said, yes, the Biden administration told us to cancel all these people, kick them off. Uh, Even if they had legitimate, correct information, kick them off because it's not what we're saying, especially about COVID. They killed probably tens to 100,000 people very easily because there were solutions to that they were throwing away. There was doctors that had developed a um, therapies with different medicines that people were getting cured, and this was before the vaccine came out. I can't remember her name, but there was a Democratic city councilman or state assembly member in Michigan. Her doctor treated her for COVID. Within a couple days, she recovered. She went on and said, "Hey, I was cured because of this therapy by my doctor." She was immediately canceled. They tried to throw her out of the Democratic Party.
Mhm.
That's the problem. And this goes back to why the young people are going for Mandami, because you had the Democratic Party and sometimes some of the Republicans lying through their teeth on different issues. And they don't understand that these kids do know how to search things on the internet.
Mhm.
And they're getting information not just from the United States and not just from ABC, NBC, CBS. They're getting information from Europe, from Asia. And when you had information coming out from, for example, Israel, uh, early in COVID, uh, it came out that Israel did a study and said natural immunity is actually better than the vaccine. But in our country, we're saying, no, 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 you still got to get it. You'll have to get it because they're in the pockets of the big pharma.
Mhm. Mhm.
We know that. Otherwise, they would not have pushed the vaccine as much as they did. They would not have locked people up. Also, being locked up for 2 years, a year and a half to 2 years, the young people didn't like that. So that's why why they're going for Mandami. The fault is the older people, the people that want to control the message. So anybody, if Curtis Adams or I don't think Coma has any shot of winning the young people over. They have to go on TikTok, Instagram, other social media, and go to the young people and win them over there. Show them how bad socialism is. Show them, for example, okay, this was Seattle, downtown Seattle, before the George Floyd riots and defund the police. This is it now. It's hollowed out. Crime rates have spiked. Same thing in San Francisco, in Portland, because of the policies Mondami is pushing. If you look at most of the policies he's pushing, they have failed in other cities. And this is what you need to show them. You need to show them, hey, the hypocrites, the Democratic hypocrites, right? They're pushing Mondami. Back in Iraq, when we finally took over, one of the Bush made a bunch of mistakes, but one of the biggest mistakes he did, he put graduates to rebuild Baghdad. You're talking young 20 to 30-year-olds that had no clue how a city actually runs except for book knowledge. And book knowledge is not the end all be all. I worked for the city for many years. Let me give you an anecdote from my career. When I was in the Army, I was a glorified gas attendant. I worked with oils and fuels, and we were taught a certain way in school, when I went for training. When I got to the field, some of it worked, some of it didn't. There were better ways to do it that people in the field came up with. There was things that, in certain circumstances, because for example, one of the things one of my jobs was filling up helicopters. We would take FARP, a forward area refueling area, and we would fill up helicopters and how to set that up. And we would drive out, pull out all the equipment, and then fill up a helicopter, which can be very dangerous because one spark in jet fuel blows up. You've had people just hooking the hose up to a helicopter or a plane, and they did it improperly. A spark flew, and next thing you know, you have an explosion. Well, I learned a couple extra ways that they didn't teach you in the books. Also,
Mm.
the and so sometimes you have to listen to the people that actually do it, not the talking heads, not the people up top, but you need to listen to the people on the ground saying, oh, no, here's a better way. Even when I was working for DOT, we did that. And my first deputy commissioner was very good at that. He would listen, and we would come up with different things that save time, save money. But if you listen to the books, you wouldn't do that. Um, one of my college professors, who actually that believed that he actually worked for GM at one point in time, and they were having a problem with one of their cars, and design and how to do something, get the metal done. They were actually, you know, going. They went to a steel plant, and one of the workers, a lowly supervisor of not a supervisor of like 5 or 6 people. He says, if we do it this way, it will work. All the educated people with tons of degrees and designers couldn't figure that out. This guy on the floor came up with it in 5 minutes because
Mm.
he works with steel every single day. He's not,
Mm.
he said, this is practical. And that's the problem with Mondami. Most of almost all his senior staff are of the same age, same education. They're all rich brats, by the way. They all went to upper schools. They have almost none of them have real working experience, and you don't want that. You go back to our founding fathers. They were farmers, doctors, lawyers. They didn't
Right.
spend the entire year just playing in Congress. They did so much other thing, so many other things. They looked
Hmm.
at things differently.
Okay. I assume from this conversation, you're not a fan of Mandami.
No,
Okay. So how is Curtis Lewa doing these days?
he needs to step it up. He needs to go out and start talking. Crime is great, but he needs to start talking about other issues. He did the other day. What was the issue he talked about? But he needs to start talking about schools. The other thing he needs to do is to go out, because one of the big questions, especially in educated areas, and this goes to the biasness of college educated people, because Curtis does not have a college degree. Everybody's saying, well, how is he going to manage? How is he going to do this? He doesn't have a college education. Well, guess what? A lot of people around the world don't have college educations and run things pretty effectively.
Hmm.
Uh, Everybody forgets Curtis runs a international nonprofit. The Guardian Angels are in 13 countries, 130 cities, and he runs it, and he doesn't get paid for it. He doesn't get it taken salary from the Guardian Angels. This man has bled New York his entire life. He has put his life, literally put his life on the line for New York. Who do you want for this city? Somebody that loves New York, or somebody thinks it's a plaything? And that's all Como does, and that's all that the other three, all the other three all think that it's their plaything. Adams, what did he do when he got into office? He went partying after work all the time at the best clubs and everything else because he wanted to be seen. Como, he's using this as a plaything to get back into politics because he got kicked out of the governorship. So he's trying to rebuild. Mondami, he's a kid. He knows nothing. He's going to experiment with New York with failed policies. Here's one thing that people will say. Well, we want to be democratic socialist like Scandinavia. That's a total unadulterated lie. They turned away from socialism in the 80s because it almost collapsed Sweden. Do you realize that uh, Sweden has 100% voucher system for their schools? 100%. You think the teachers union are going to go with that? No. Do you realize 80% of all their social services are for-profit organizations? Because they realize the government organizations just don't move quick enough. They don't make the changes. But you have Bernie Sanders, AOC, in Mandami. We want to be like Scandinavia. Oh, no, you don't. And also Norway, one of the reasons Norway can spend the money they do is because of their oil wealth. What they did is they took their oil wealth, put it into a sovereign wealth fund to help defer taxes and spending. Well, that fund is one of the largest in the world. It's worth trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. So the money they get, they take a small portion of it and it supplements the government so they can do a lot more. It's not by tax dollars. See, our people don't know this, and this is the education we need to give them. They don't research this.
Hmm.
And
So,
go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and that's why I'm saying this is the stuff you need to put out to the young people. The other attack we need to do, and I blame myself, I need to write an op-ed and put it into the chief. For all the city workers, if any of them are voting for Mondami, kiss your pension goodbye in about 5 to 10 years. Seriously. because business is already saying they're going to leave. The tax base is going to go down. Uh, the the pension fund is so mismanaged. They say, "Oh, it's the best run in the country." Yeah, but it's still only about 65% funded, which means, and that's not good. That's not good at all. And people don't realize that every year New York City puts between $7 to $9 billion of taxpayer money into the pension system. That's not coming from the workers. That's extra money to make up for the money that the pension fund's not making. And even though, and under Christie, because the same thing was when he was the governor of New Jersey, the teachers union was New Jersey was supplementing the earnings of the pension fund so they could pay out the pensions, and the federal courts ruled in Christie's favor. You don't have to do that, even if it's in the state constitution.
So do you speak to Curtis at all?
I haven't spoke to him in a little while.
So you're not really giving him that much advice.
I gave him some. I gave some of his campaign managers, but yeah, I'm going to try to contact him again. I have some other ideas for him because
It,
I think. Go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I think Curtis still has a possibility of winning this. If you have the Republicans come out in mass and vote for Curtis, he has enough crossover votes to actually win this thing because people know him. You have the black community in certain areas that are breaking from the Democratic Party. They don't like Mandami. They voted for Como. You just got to split them off. Some of them voted for Como. You got to split them off and go to Curtis. And the other problem is the media is totally against Curtis. They've always been totally against Curtis. They don't cover him properly. He's an also ran, you know, even though Adams' campaign has collapsed. He hasn't done any campaign stops in like the last 4 or 5 days. So he's out of money.
And
So,
we still and we're still in late September, so we've got a little while to go. And if Adams doesn't have any money, he's on the Titanic right now.
yeah, and he can't raise it, and he can't raise much money because he's already tapped everybody out. Everybody sees he's going to lose the race, so why should they give him money?
Wow.
And,
So
and that's the problem. And Como just has so many negatives. The old guard wants him in office because he's gonna pay them, just like he paid him when he was governor. Okay, my favorite you know lobbyists are going to get this money for this person, this money for this person, this money. Even though he doesn't have what Como doesn't realize, I bet he doesn't have the same authority as the governor does to do that stuff. He has more checks on him.
did you like Mario Cuomo when he was governor?
I liked him personally, but I didn't like some of his policy. I talked to Mario a couple times. Mario was a brilliant man. We disagreed on policy, which is fine. I was in the Independence Party, and twice we hosted a meeting with him in the, actually it was United We Stand America, sorry, that we hosted a couple meetings with him, and I talked to him and for about 5 6 minutes, and like I said, we got along fine, and it was an intellectual debate, which is what you need. Um, I've also met Andrew. Andrew is not his father. uh,
Do you think he's smart?
yeah, but he's nowhere near as smart as his father was.
What about it?
His father, when we talked issues, he could actually quote, he could actually come back with certain things on that issue. He would bring up facts on those issues. Andrew can't do that. Most politicians can't do that.
What about
And
his brother Chris?
I've never met him, so I don't know.
Okay, if the
Oh no,
election,
well, yeah. Well, what he's on television. See, the problem is with people on television, sometimes you're not sure if they're doing an act
Mm,
or, are they being fed stuff? So, like I said, I've never met him personally. So I'm not going to judge somebody just from what I see on television unless I talk to him personally. Because sometimes they're giving scripts to read. You need to say it this way. You need to
right.
talk about it. So sometimes you can't tell. And that's one of the problems with Curtis in his reputation. He's a shock jock. That's his job as a shock jock, to
Mm.
be controversial and stuff like that. But that's not who the man is personally. And that's what people can't connect. And and that's the problem. Um, you know, I thought there's been a number of actors and stuff, comedians that have gotten elected to office that were fine. So in if you look at them when they're how they led, it wasn't how they acted. It wasn't their persona on movies, TV, radio. And that's what one of the things people have to do is to move that aside and see the real person, not the persona they portray for their, entertainment job.
So if the election was held today, venture a guess on what the percentage each candidate will get.
If it was held today, I feel that Mandami would get 42% of the vote. Como would get like low 20s, 21, 20, 20%. I think Curtis would get in the low 20s. Both of them will be about even. And Adams will get like 3 to 5%.
Oh my
And
God.
then the rest will be spread between
Uh,
the other candidates on the ballot.
So since Cuomo is losing pretty badly,
Hmm.
he was governor, he stepped down, he jumped into the arena for this, and he's not doing well.
Hmm.
Do you think he feels embarrassed?
No. And you know
Not.
why? He's taking the campaign matching funds and paying his people. He doesn't have offices around the city. He's not out there campaigning that hard. He doesn't have a ground game. So he's basically using the city money uh, to fund his people and his patrons and stuff like that. He's not really campaigning. It's just that
He,
everybody's pushing him and he doesn't care.
so he knows that Mondami's ahead of him, but he's not doing much to overcome that big lead that Mondami has,
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
Oh, absolutely. And then you have all the politicians and unions and everything uh, going to Mondami and bending the knee because they want to kiss his ring so they don't get screwed when he wins.
Wow.
Though they're going to get screwed anyway because he's going to bankrupt the city. And you have a Republican mayor, a president. There's no money to bail him out. They're not going to come in and bail New York out, just like they did in the 70s. And luckily, the state had money. The state doesn't have money this year, this time to bail them out. The state is just as bad as the city when it comes to spending, even worse. They're actually even worse than the city right now because some of the checks and balances the city has because of their bankruptcy in the 80s. There were some laws and mechanisms set up so they can't go too far out of line. But that can change quickly.
So let's talk right after the election, and you could give a blow-by-blow description of the outcome of the race.
Mm.
And also, I would like for you and I to discuss next year the congressional race for Jerry Nadler.
The
Because,
12th congressional seat. Yeah.
because if it's going to a big name, it's going to be interesting. I don't think that Carolyn Kennedy's son has the chops to be mayor. I mean, I'm
You
sorry,
mean congressman?
Yes.
Well, we have a lot of people in Congress that don't have the chops to be Congress people, but because of their name, the money they were able to raise, and everything else, they get elected because the electorate is not really educated when it comes to voting. They they've literally been brainwashed. You have to vote your party line. Don't vote for the person, vote for your party line. And also, they also think it's a right to vote and not your responsibility. So we don't have a large voter turnout. And so that also hurts. Um, we need to start educating our kids and trying to re-educate the adults that are out of school that it is your responsibility. If you don't like what the government is doing, the policies are doing, the crime, the homelessness, in any other policy, it's your elected officials. And if you've been voting for the same person for the last 30 years,
Hmm.
I think it's your fault. You
Okay.
know?
I want to leave but one question to you. I watch Sabrina Salvati on YouTube,
Mhm.
and she's a green. She lives in Massachusetts, and she's more or less fed up with the political system. She calls politics theater. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. It's always been theater since the beginning of our country. You know, right from the beginning. Everybody thinks, oh, this is something new. No, you go throughout our history, there's been times when uh, politics has been cutthroat, name calling, and everything else. Uh, some of it, led to the Civil War,
Hmm.
and we're heading towards a Civil War again, but not American Civil War, not the American first Civil War. We're going to be more like the civil wars in Spain and other countries where you're already seeing it. Two ice agents being shot, one killed yesterday in Texas. You have ABC being shot up in, I believe it was Arizona. You have all these attacks from the left on American citizens. Look at what's going on with Mangione. Uh, he's being treated as a hero for killing a man just because he was an officer in a drug company, in a health
Okay,
country.
let me stop you right there. According to law, according to the courts, a person is innocent until he's been proven guilty. Luigi Mangione has not been proven guilty.
No, no, I understand that. But what I'm trying to say is the people in the internet and other people have made him a hero because they believe he did shoot the gentleman and kill him. That's what I'm saying. In their minds, whether he's been convicted or not, he's a hero because they believe he did kill the healthcare executive and made two children fatherless, a wife husbandless, because he deserved it. That's the problem. That's where you're getting it. They're celebrating, just like they celebrate tons, hundreds of thousands, millions of people across this country celebrated Charlie Kirk's murder. That's what I'm saying. These people are being put on a pedestal for committing violence against any Republican, on any company. Anything that they don't like, they're being put on a pedestal. They're being celebrated. That's why we're heading for a civil war. It's not that Mangione was convicted or not. He might be innocent. Personally, I don't think so, but that's a different story. He hasn't been convicted yet. But because they're celebrating the act, that's the problem. You could, and there's so many different acts around the country. Like people are celebrating shooting up the ICE facility. About a month ago, you had officers killed in Texas, ICE officers killed in Texas from a sniper.
Mhm.
So they're celebrating the killing of ICE officers, of police officers, of political figures. That's the problem.
Okay.
It's not everybody, but there's enough people, and that's all you need. Is a certain percentage, which could be 20 to 30% of the young people that are celebrating this, and some of the older people.
Mhm.
That's what can cause a civil war.
Okay, so 2026, I would like you to comment about um who's going to replace Jerry Nadler, and we could talk about we can talk about the triumphs and failures of a potential Mondami administration.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, that won't take place to January 1st, but
Right. So, we'll talk a lot next year.
absolutely.
What I'm saying. Okay, so you've been listening to Mike Zumblusky. I'm sorry. So,
Zumbluskas.
sorry. I'm
That's
Cynthia
okay.
Fuller. This is Focus on the Candidates. And I want to remind everybody who's listening that on August 1st is National Candidate Recognition Day. I'm creating a holiday for candidates. July 4th is the 250th birthday of this country. And then a few weeks later is August 1st. And I want to celebrate all those who have been candidates to ensure that we have had 250 birthdays for America. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Cynthia.
Have a great day.
You too.